Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to Sobriety, Spirituality, and Sales. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Bader.
Good morning.
The show is brought to you by Mike Bader State Farm Agency. And we've got a really special guest today. I'm super excited. Kirk Carruthers is with us this morning. How you doing, Kirk?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thank you, man. That music got me pumped up.
Dude, I'm trying to put a little Christian music on there, but he couldn't make it happen this morning. There's some legal rights to that stuff. So how you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing great, man. Like we say, blessed and highly favored, right?
Yeah. You look nice there. That's a really nice shirt you got on.
I got all dressed up for you and Mike. So it is Mike and Mike, right?
That's
Mike in the morning.
It is. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we've got a limited amount of time
Very
with
cool.
you. Sales call or meeting this afternoon, correct?
Absolutely, yeah, I do, but I appreciate you guys having me on. There's nothing I like more than talking with two guys that live the life and talking about sobriety and talking about faith. And then, of course, I know we're going to dabble into a little bit about sales as well. But I'm just excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So let's get right into it then. You're from East Lansing, Michigan, originally, born and raised.
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yep.
And what was it like growing up in the early '80s in East Lansing?
I love the Midwest. I love Michigan. I had a great childhood, but I was the parent or the child of alcoholic parents. So I had that dynamic, all the way through my childhood, my adolescence, and even going into adult childhood. But East Lansing was awesome. My dad coached and played at Michigan State. Of course, Michigan State's in East Lansing. So we're a football family. Both my brothers played Division I football. So it was a very interesting dynamic. We were very high function athletes. We were academic. But unfortunately, I was also an alcoholic and a drug addict as I was growing up. I had my first joint and beer at the same time at 15 years old. And it was kind of a funny story. I was thinking and contemplating about going to one of the military academies for college. So I went to Fork Union Military Academy for my sophomore year in high school, which was a boarding school. And, I had never touched alcohol or drugs. I was a very innocent kid growing up, a Midwestern kid. And that summer I came home from Fork Union and I got in a car with my middle brother, his best friend and my best friend. And they pulled out, a joint and some beer. And I fell in love with it instantly. And so that was the start of, the path of my addiction.
Okay. And that was at 15?
That was at 15. Yeah.
Okay. So how were you able to, obviously you're a superb athlete and everything. How did that affect, I know when I would get high before basketball games or whatnot, I think I was playing better. But I'm sure if I went and looked at videotapes, I'm sure I was in slow motion or there was, how did that affect obviously you went on and played in the NFL, you played at Florida State, you were honorable All-American 2 years there. You played under the great Bobby Bowden. So, I mean, you had a terrific career. So were you that good of an athlete that it didn't affect you? Did you play better? Like, what do you think it caused in you at that time?
Great. Yeah, great question, Mike. I've done a lot of reflection on it, as well. And I think by the grace of God, he allowed me to be able to excel even though I was, fighting that addiction and that disease. So, of course, and I hate to say this about regret, but I do have regrets. And I've heard somebody in one of my meetings say, I don't have any regrets because everything that's happened in my life has gotten me to in this chair today and has got me into this sobriety life. So at the same time, there are some things that I look back, I'm like, what if, I wasn't drinking and doing drugs? Maybe, instead of being an honorable mention All-American, I could have been a first team All-American. If I didn't get cut more in the NFL than I got to play in the NFL, I could have maybe lasted for 10 years. So with that being said, like you, I know it affected me, but I was, like I said, it was crazy. I was blessed to be able to still perform at that high level. There would be times, and I'm embarrassed to even, say this, but there'd be times that I'd go, without sleep and, go to an 8 a.m. practice. And I, of course, was still on, substances. And of course, I'm sure still drunk, and go right into a practice and still be able to, fight off some of the best athletes and play at that high level. So, it definitely had an effect on me. There's no doubt about it. So I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that. But at the same time, like I said, I was blessed to be able to still fight through it and be able to perform at that level. And I look back, and once again, thank God for my higher power. I came in with 20, I think it was 24 guys in my recruiting class at Florida State. And out of those 24 guys, two of us graduated. And I was one of those guys.
Wow.
So, yeah, so, just like I said, and that's just obviously a blessing from God. But now, Mike, like I said, nothing, happens without, you know, rising from the ashes, man. And so I look back at those times and, going through that pain, you either, you just don't go through it, you grow through it.
100%.
And yeah, and so fighting through that, and looking back on that, I think, holy moly, man, how did I do that? But, I was definitely blessed, and just being able to, fight through it and perform it really was a miracle. There's no doubt about it.
And I almost, Mike, you may agree with me on this, but I almost feel like back then it might be easier to get away with going to practice messed up, whereas today I feel like they monitor stuff like that a lot more just because of the times that we live in. Like, can you speak to like were other players doing this? Were you the only one? Was it something that was like acceptable? Like coaches were like, he's a kid, it's gonna happen. Like what was that like?
Thank God there weren't phones back in our day, right?
Right, right, right.
I say that all the time. But it's interesting, and I think there's kind of two sides to that story. There's definitely, I think we were under a microscope for sure, but now I see, but with the legalization of marijuana and tolerance and things of that nature, with it being so widely accepted, and I know about the program now and different phases of the program at Florida State. There's some acceptance to these guys being able to smoke marijuana. Back in my day, we were drug tested randomly once a month. And of course, the NCAA came in periodically and did a random drug test as well. So I don't know if it was any easier back then than it was nowadays. Like I said, I think there was some more lenience from what I've heard, and some more acceptance in allowing these guys to kind of do what they want to do, is just as long as they're performing.
Got
And
it.
I won't, yeah, and I won't get into of course, the NIL and the portal and all of that, but I think, with all of those dynamics involved, I think there is some more leniency because,
Sure.
it's hard to keep these guys for sure.
Sure. I think the most glaring example of drug use in college and the NFL was Lawrence Taylor back in the day, right?
Absolutely, Mike. And it's so funny when you asked me that first question. Uh, I just was watching a clip on him on TikTok, and they were talking about him, doing cocaine in the locker room at halftime and doing cocaine before the games. He was like, how did you do that? He's like, let me just stop you right there. He's like, it didn't affect my performance at all. If anything, it hyped me up and made me better. So there's no doubt he was definitely a freak of nature, I think, when it comes to that. And once again, brutal honesty, there's no doubt that it affected me and my play at certain times and how I practiced. Of course, and I want to clarify, I was never high or drunk before a game or during a game, but multiple practices, of course, I definitely was drinking and doing some form of a drug, numerous practices. So those are things that I look back on, and I'm like I said, once again, what if I wasn't? What if I did? What could have been the potential? And that's how I live. Mike, it's you know, do I want to fulfill my potential? And I talk to my kids about that, and how can I try to get the most out of them and try to get them to live up to their full potential. If I was living that line, I was not trying to be the best father, friend, husband, dad. How could I try to be the best of my potential if I'm trying to demand it from them. And I was handicapping myself with drugs and alcohol. And, I went, to my rehab, and the CEO was Kirk Kirkpatrick, who played for the Gators. He played for the Bucks, and he was a good friend of mine. And we're sitting in a room one day, and I said, Kirk, I said, man, it's a shame. I'm operating at about 80%. And he looked over at me, Kurt, he said, Kurt, who are you kidding? You're not even close to 80%. And,
Wow.
and that's the lie we live. And when I hear people say that, they're functioning alcoholics or they're functioning drug addicts, there's no such thing. And that's why now I live my life to be, the best that I can be. I want to live to my full potential. And that's why I love the life that I've chosen. God has made the impossible possible by getting me sober and keeping me sober. And, I wanted a different life. And now that I have that life, I want to keep it.
Right. Do you have any questions?
No, no.
I have a question, and this kind of relates to like me leave. And I by no means did I play on the level that you did in sports, but I love sports. I was very competitive. My dad was a college tennis coach, all these things. And there was an identity in basketball for me, or in being an athlete for me. And when I really hurt my knee, and I had the surgery, and I just realized, look, this is not something, it's not like I was going to ever get paid for it, but there was an identity shift that needed to happen because I saw myself as this athlete. So for yourself, coming out of playing in the CFL with the Las Vegas Stampede your last year, did you go in deeper to addict? First of all, I don't know when you got sober, but did you go in deeper to the addiction because you thought, gosh, this is all I've known for so long? I mean, that was really my job for so long. Or was it an easy transition for you to say, okay, I can separate this identity and now I'm going to jump into the business world?
Excellent point, Mike. And just like you're saying, not only did I identify as Kirk Carruthers, the football player, but that was who I was, right? I mean, that was me. I was a football player. And I've talked to numerous teammates and other guys, in the league and through college, and we all felt that same thing. That was our identity. When I played my last game in the CFL and I retired, there's no doubt I lost my identity. I struggled with that immensely. There was about maybe even close to a 2-year period, man. I was just trying to figure out who I was, what I was going to do. And it was one of the more difficult times of my life. And there's no doubt drugs and alcohol accelerated immensely at that point in time. I mean, that was, of course, like we say, drugs and alcohol aren't the problem. They're the solution to our pain. And I was definitely numbing my pain at that point in time because I thought my life was over. I thought football was my life. And it's so interesting now that I look back and I see the life that I have now. And don't get me wrong, I feel so blessed for that opportunity of being an athlete and playing for Florida State and getting able to fulfill my boyhood dream and play in the NFL. But that was fantastic, and like I said, I'm so grateful for that. But now this is my purpose. This is the life that God has chosen for me, and I'm so blessed to have. And and kind of reflecting back to what I was saying about no regrets. Everything that I went through got me to this point, and I've never been happier. I've never been more at peace. And this life that I have now is just amazing, and I'm just so happy. So it definitely was a transition, but I look back at it now, and I always thought that the world was over, and I thought my life was done, and now it's just kind of comical to me now that I really see my purpose, and I'm
Right.
just so.
There's a quote in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't know if you subscribe to that book or if you've read it, but the Henry Ford quote talking about experience being the number one asset. And I mean,
Yeah.
you just have a ton of that, as a lot of us do, and they end up getting sober, right? We have a ton of life experience. So you hopped out of the CFL. How quickly did you get into medical device sales? And I think it was
Yeah,
Johnson and Johnson. That was the first company.
it
Okay.
was. And like I said, I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, and at that point in time, the most important thing to me was drugs and alcohol. So for that next probably 2 years, that's what I was really consumed by. and thank God, like I said, and and I wasn't, I didn't have my faith at that time, but now that I do, and I look back, there's just so many lifelines, that God was throwing out to me at those certain times of my life that were so crucial and critical to getting me here. And at the time, we're thinking, oh God, I'm going through this, but I had to go through that to get to here. But one of those lifelines was I woke up and I was in Miami South Beach. I was living down there, which isn't a very good place for an addict or an alcoholic. And I realized that I needed to do something with my life and get a and get a job. And so I had a buddy that I played with at Florida State that was in medical sales, and I just happened to give him a call. And like I said, this was just totally out of the blue, and start kind of picking his brain. And he and I was kind of hoping he would kind of bring it up, but he said, "You know what, Kirk? I think you'd be good in medical sales." And I said, I was kind of thinking the same thing. And so, he kind of motivated me to just start sending out my resumes. And I was very fortunate to get an interview with Johnson and Johnson. That was my very first gig. So, and it took off from there.
So how long have you been sober, Kirk?
I
What age did you retire from football?
yeah, I retired when I was 24. So I spent 3 years kind of bouncing around. Retired in 24, and then, like I said, I took those 2 years. I did some traveling. I had a little bit of money. I lived over in Europe for a year. Once again, just doing my thing, and really didn't get to enjoy Europe because obviously I was under the influence. But so I did get to do some of that, and I lived in New York for a little bit, and it just kind of was, like I said, floundering around. But then I got that job, and of course they wanted me to come back to Tallahassee to kind of utilize my history with football and my name recognition. And so my very first job was back in '95, I think it was, with Johnson and Johnson back in Tallahassee.
Outstanding.
Okay. And then how long have you been sober?
Sorry, I forgot the question.
You're good. You're
Yeah,
good.
I'll tell you guys, I was a slow learner. I got sober in 2018. I went to Riverside Recovery in Tampa, and that's where, yep, that's where my good friend was the CEO. But I'll tell you what, guys, and unfortunately, like a lot of us, after 2 years, I felt like, you know what, uh, I can drink like a normal person. I've got this thing.
Mm.
And I thought I had it figured out. And as we know, this disease is kind of baffling and powerful. And so it convinced me that I could handle it. And as we all know, with a relapse, it's an insidious, quick, nasty slope. And I was off to the races, and I was worse than I ever was. And so now I'm over 2 years sober again now.
Congratulations,
Outstanding.
Kurt. Well,
Outstanding.
so what I hear you saying is like you attempted sobriety maybe numerous occasions, and now
It
you're
is. Yeah, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
well. This is my personal experience was that you can go in to sit in meetings and you can hear people say all the right things, but parties like I think they're kind of bullshitting a little bit. But then there's people like us that have lived through it that have fallen down multiple times but got back up. So when we talk about what the book says and the experiences that we have, like there's a feeling to that. You can feel that because we went through that. I don't know about you, but my last relapse in Albuquerque, New Mexico, the book came alive, everything that the book talks about, because there's promises and then there's dark promises. This is what you'll
Yeah.
get if you do this deal, if you take the suggestions, and then this is what you'll get if you don't. Right. And it's like everything that it talked about, the relapse happens before the first drink. I can remember sitting in Albuquerque in traffic or Rio Rancho, and I'm yelling at the guy in front of me to go because he's not driving fast enough. And I'm like, I'm cooked, I'm already in this, state of just total BS. And frankly, the relapse happened for me on that trip when we were driving into Albuquerque with my boss in my 96 Ford Explorer. I'm sober maybe a year. And he looks at me, he goes, Mike, you want to go to the strip club tonight? And I was like, yes. No hesitation. I
Right.
didn't drink. And in fact, I patted myself on the back when I left because I was like, oh, I did a great job. But what the book talks about, I was in there trying to get some kind of mood from somebody else. I was
Yeah.
seeking pleasure, vicarious pleasure, as they say.
Yeah.
And so, you have this lived experience, and we have very similar paths. I mean, I tried to get sober many, many times, and all that matters is we did and we do, and I'm sure to kind of backtrack to your sales career, sales and liquor consumption go hand in hand, because especially in your business, because you guys are schmoozing doctors, you guys are doing the deal, going around and going to these conferences, and that's kind of an acceptable thing. Am I wrong?
No, absolutely, Mike. That's a huge part of the industry, right? Is entertaining, drinking, eating, and that's just what we do. And so, yeah, that was just part of the lifestyle. But and just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, my first time at at rehab, I came out, and of course, I was gung ho, and I was feeling great. And like you said, I started going to meetings, and I was, I was the guy that would come in 5 minutes, late, and leave 5 minutes early. And like you said, just kind of listening to people. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if this stuff's for me. Um, but I was still, riding that pink cloud, but it wasn't really, it wasn't penetrating my heart and my mind like it should have, like it did this time. But I say I liked rehab so much the first time I wanted to go back twice. So I went back. So,
Say, run.
so I went back to Riverside again, which Riverside's a fantastic place. It's an incredible place, and it has saved my life. But so this time though, Mike, like you said, man, I knew this was life or death, and I took it that serious. And it's like we say, man, this isn't rocket science. It's definitely the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's easy, man. Do what they say, go to meetings, get a sponsor, and work your ass off. Do the work.
So
And
what I hear you saying is that you finally surrendered.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it, right? I finally surrendered.
I mean,
And
you're a big guy. You're 6'2". You look like you still work out. You could probably throw us both around the room and stuff. So I know for me, my ego gets involved, and I say, no, I'm stronger than this, or this is the case, or that is the case. But truly, when we're open to suggestions and we surrender to the process and we surrender to our higher power, that's when the magic happens.
absolutely, Mike, and that's so beautifully put. There's no doubt about it. My ego was huge, and I thought, like I said, I could do this thing on my own. I thought I had it figured out. I didn't need the steps. I didn't need a sponsor. Right? I was a big badass Kirk Carruthers, and I got this thing, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. Until, like you said, man, I just gave it all to God, and I bought in. And I just realized, man, I'm a chronic alcoholic and a drug addict, and if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. And so yeah, and that's what happened, and thank God it happened.
Well, we appreciate your honesty, dude, and your openness and your willingness just to come on here and just be so transparent. I mean, this is how lives get changed, by hearing people's true testimony and not holding back. And I appreciate you being so forthcoming with us. And I know Mike's on his journey.
Mm-hmm.
We mesh really well together. He decided he liked the show so much he wanted to just be on it every week with us, and he's new on this journey, and Mike played sports growing up. you know Mike's a business owner here in Tucson. He does
Okay.
very well, and I think he's kind of going through some of the things that you're touching on, that his truthfully that his, are crossing his mind,
Yeah,
that have
yeah.
crossed his mind. So this is fantastic to hear all this stuff. Just
It's definitely tough. I mean, it's an everyday process, and you have to just buy into it because you just can't do it 50% or have at least the attitude I had. I'm not that bad. I don't need to go to meetings. I don't need this. I don't need that. But who am I fooling?
I remember
It's
walking in a meeting and I looked at the 12 steps and I like read them off, and I was like, okay, I did the steps. I think I'm good. Or having this thought that, okay, if I just stop drinking, my life will change. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Drinking and drugging, because I was also heavy addict.
Right. Well, and Mike, the way you just put it, man, you just have to go, all in. And I make the kind of the analogy. It's like when you're at a cold pool, and you're thinking like, well, shit. how am I going to get in that thing? If you put a toe in there, you're definitely not getting in. But it's amazing if you go, you go for it, you jump in, and all of a sudden, about after 30 seconds, that water's not that cold anymore, man. And
Yeah.
that was like sobriety for me this second time, man. When I went head in and just full force, 100%, man, the water got real warm, after a real quick amount of time,
Right.
and like man, life became amazing, and it's just such a gift, man. And I look back on it now, and I was thinking maybe someone was going to save me, or maybe some miracle was going to happen, and then I realized, like I said, man, this is up to me. This is my life. Do I want to have an incredible life from here on out, or do I want to be known as Kirk, the drunk and the drug addict? And it was a real easy decision. Now after that, I look back on it. Don't get me wrong, like you said, Mike, this is an everyday thing. It's the hardest thing I ever did, but it's the best thing I ever did too.
Yeah, yeah. And I know you have to take off here in about 10 minutes. So um, I've got another question. So on your first step, you know, my life is unmanageable, the
Mm.
unmanageability. Can you just share one, we're not trying to get into crazy war stories here, but can you share one thing that was on your first step that was glaring to you that
Well,
really drove?
just like, yeah, I mean, just like you said, Mike, I mean, my life was unmanageable. And, like you said, we try to fool ourselves and say, I'm not that bad, or, I can handle this. And then I started doing some reflection, and everything based around me getting drunk and high, and I wasn't living a life. It was the furthest thing from. I was existing. My life was totally unmanageable. My relationships were terrible. It got to the point where it was affecting my work immensely. My health, I was in and out of the hospital towards the end, and with scary, scary stuff. And like you guys, know you're both athletic and fit and look great. That's just not us. And so, with all that, just kind of hitting me in the face at once, it was a real revelation to say, man, like you said, I have to succumb and realize that my life is unmanageable, and it's just do or die time for me, and that's what it was, man. It was either you're gonna save your life or you're gonna die, and I want to save my life.
Was the spiritual experience that you had? I'm going to guess that you had a spiritual experience just because of your lust for life that you can hear in what you're saying. Was that a white lightning experience, or was that a slow, methodical process, as they say?
Yeah, I wish it would have been one of those white lightning things, because I love those kind of stories. But for me, it was kind of a thing where it was just through a lot of reflection. And unfortunately, one of my best friends was the team doctor at Florida State, who's also my pastor. He heads and leads my church here in Tallahassee, and so he had been working on me since my freshman year in 1988 to become a Christian. And I and I thank him all the time, because I said you never gave up on me, and I got baptized in 2018.
Amen.
But yes, absolutely, Mike. But to answer that question, like I said, it was me starting to do a lot of soul searching, a lot of reflection, and just looking at those times in my life where, I mean, how many times could I have been dead, or how many times could I have been in jail? How many times, could I have killed somebody else? And I look at all those times, and I'm like, those weren't coincidences. I don't believe in coincidences. There's no such thing for me. It's the power of God and God working in my life, and those things that He did were just miracles. And when you truly sit down and you do that introspection, that reflection, and you look, unless you're just in such denial, you can't argue the fact that God is real, and God performs miracles in us every day. And the miracles that He did and continues to do in my life, it just make it so prevalent that He's real, that He continues to save my life daily. He continues to give me mercy and grace. And I live so confidently now that in my faith and in Jesus Christ, that nothing rattles me, nothing shakes me. I don't care
Right.
if it's a person, a situation, nothing, because I have such faith and confidence in Jesus Christ that I know, first of all, that's part of the plan. it's making me stronger. It's making me better. And ultimately, this is what he wants for me. And at the end, it's going to be incredible.
Amen. And then,
Amen.
so talk about how, I mean, you crushed it in sales while you were in your addiction. It sounds like multiple President's Club winners, right? I mean,
Yes.
but just talk about the last 2+ years, or let's even go back to 2018 when you were baptized. Was there a sense of less stress, of relief in your day-to-day work once you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Was there a difference once you had a spiritual experience to allow you to relax more in business, to allow you to have a different perspective on the hustle and grind? Hey, I don't need to do this and push so hard because I know, like to your point, you said God's got my back. God's right there with me. Things are good. A deal that you need to lean into. Maybe you think, maybe you don't, because what, God's going to work it out either way. It's either meant to be or it's not. Because I know
That's
that's been my thing over the years in sales.
That's right. And I know you guys have heard this when God, grants our prayers, that's his direction. When he doesn't grant our prayers, that's his protection. And with my faith and allowing God to take over, it definitely has relieved so much of, well, first of all, I was ridden with anxiety and depression through my addiction. And my mental health was crazy out of control. And it was amazing. I was seeing psychiatrists and therapists, and they were prescribing me every antipsychotic, that they possibly could. And it came down to accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And I swear, guys, it was amazing. Instantly, all of that was gone. And my, of course, my faith in God and my sobriety, my faith in God is number one in everything, of course, first and foremost. But my sobriety is right there. So my faith in God and my sobriety have totally relieved all of my mental health. With that alone, that is such a miracle and such a blessing that,
Amen.
right? That I mean, it's just such a relief and such a beautiful feeling that why would I ever, want to turn back? And like I said, you never say never with this disease, but, and that's just what I fall back on, man. It's just the miracles once again that he's done, especially with my mental health, that
Well,
it's just a blessing. But yeah, he took all of that away and all of that stress with my profession, my relationships, or any situation, like I said, has just been so beautiful because I know it's all going to work out according to his plan. And so, man, it's just such a beautiful feeling.
well, thank you so much, Kirk. Do you have anything to add, Mike?
No, I mean, what an example. You got kids, Kirk?
I do. As a matter
Okay.
of fact, yeah, I've got three from my first relationship, and my current girlfriend who's also sober. She has two from another marriage, so she's got a 7 and a 9. So I've got a new batch that I'm helping out and that I'm loving. That's keeping me young too. So
What
yeah, so I'm
a,
blessed again, Mike.
Hey, man, thank you so
outstanding.
much for your time. We appreciate you. Maybe we can have you on again someday because I mean, I'm sure we could talk all day. I can already tell. So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially about the sales.
yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
really didn't touch on that a whole lot, um, but that last part was powerful. That testimony of your mental health being taken from you. That is incredible. Excuse me. Your struggles with mental health. I mean,
Yeah.
that's absolutely incredible. That is just a testament to what God can do in our lives. So.
So true, guys, and it's so true. And I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks again for the opportunity. Like I said, this was a pleasure. God bless both of you guys, and I would love to come back again.
Right on,
Outstanding.
Kirk.
You too,
Have a great
Kirk.
day.
Thanks a
Go
lot.
close the deal.
All right, guys. Thank you.
I think we got 15 minutes. I think are we going to stay on, Tony?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, what a great example. I mean, to go down that road, I mean, you hear so many stories of athletes that they can't start that chapter after their profession. They just kind of wither away. And, here's a guy that was successful at what he did and then started a new chapter, got into sales, started a new chapter, got sober, found Jesus. I mean, what an outstanding story.
That was powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
It's funny because Clint and myself were talking in his office this morning about, you know, drinking at a young age in our careers and waking up the next day and going to work at like 6, and not really phasing us, I
Yeah.
guess, right? Well, I mean, that was his job. So he
Yeah.
was doing the same thing. That was just
Exactly.
his particular job. And, some athletes are gifted, and he's just had a tremendous amount of experience, as we both have as well. And I think all we're really trying to do is pass that experience on to other folks who are dealing with similar circumstances, who are trying to find a way out, who are trying to find a different way of living. I mean, 2025 has been, a crazy year.
Yeah.
He mentioned drinking and driving and potentially killing somebody. I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but these kids that got mowed down on the U of A campus there at University in Euclid,
Yeah.
the guy was drinking, and yes, there's no lights there, but I mean, that could have been me at any point in time.
Exactly.
That could have been you. I do have 3 DUIs. Luckily, I didn't kill anybody. My second DUI, it's funny, but it's also pathetic, is I hit another drunk driver behind the
Wow.
University Medical Center. So 2 drunk drivers crashed into each other.
So the police had a heyday with that, huh?
Dude, I was in a 62 Plymouth. My dad it was my grandfather's car. He was redoing the vehicle.
Oh, wow.
So there was no interior. There was no seatbelts. There was
Yeah.
no interior, no soft landing on either side of the car. I had a handle of gin sitting shotgun with me. I blow through it. I did a California stop, got hit. The horn wouldn't shut off. These kids come out, pull me out of the window because the door wouldn't open. I think about running, and then I said, "No, I'm just gonna go dump this liquor out and just sit here and just wait for whatever happens."
Yeah.
And I almost died. I actually had a ruptured spleen and a punctured lung, and I was in the ICU for like 2 weeks.
So did you get rear-ended or did you hit somebody?
I got T-boned.
Oh,
T-boned on the driver's side.
wow.
So I ran the stop sign, California stop, kind of rolled through it, and then they hit me. And went to UMC that night and checked myself out. I pulled all the equipment off of me and walked out of there. And then in the morning at my girlfriend's apartment, I couldn't even get out. I couldn't sit up to get out of bed. So went back to St. Mary's and was admitted and immediately given morphine. And then about 4 days in, I said, I don't want any more morphine because I'm starting to see dragons on the wall, But I was in a lot of pain, and it took me a long time to recover from that. And, I was given pills, and that exacerbated my pill problem, which pretty much started when I was a young teenager, when I was given Vicodin at the dentist. And I knew something in my brain said, I like this.
Yeah.
This is nice,
Yeah.
And so, these experiences that I'm not proud of, but it is my experience. This young man who hit these people in a crosswalk, I mean, his life,
It's gone.
and maybe it's not gone forever. Maybe there's we pray there's a redemption story there.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure he's hurting. His family's hurting. I don't think anybody really means to get behind the car and kill somebody.
I mean, you're always thinking about the people that were affected, the kids that passed, and the pain that their families are going through.
Yeah.
But I mean, look what happened to this
There's
guy.
four families that are
Four
that
families
are
are,
affected.
yeah.
So the grace of God, the mercy of God that he talks about is so real. And you can just tell by talking with Kirk his lust for life. Like I said,
you said, you took the words right out of my mouth.
He is walking his talk.
Yeah.
You can just see it, right? And so it's just incredible for me to see as an example. That's why I go to meetings. That's why we work together and we bounce stuff off each other, because hey, if I'm having a down day and I hear someone share a testimony that has completely transformed and changed their life, it makes me feel good.
And I just respect them for walking the walk. I think in the first episode, what the reason why I wanted to get sober is because of what happened with my son. And, I guess the biggest regret that I have is that I didn't walk that walk with him. I wasn't the example because I didn't think I had a problem. And, and to listen to Kirk and I mean, he looks great. He's just a ball of energy. And he's got all these kids that he's raising, and what an example for them.
Absolutely.
And that's what needs to happen. I think there just needs to be, the old system has to be broken.
Well, and what I saw in Kirk, I see in myself, and I kind of see in you, is that he goes, well, I was a slow learner.
Yeah.
So we're kind of saying, well, that's God's timing. Well, he wasn't meant to get sober until 2 years ago. I wasn't meant to get sober until, right, I had to go through all the BS because I was self-centered to the core. All I cared about was myself. I had to learn all these lessons to realize I don't have control over anything. God is constantly in control.
Yeah.
And he's the only one that can make things happen, open doors. You know, the experiences that I've had since I got sober, and I'm sure Kirk would attest to this and you would as well, is that God does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. He opens doors for us that would never, ever, ever be opened otherwise.
Yeah.
But we have to do our part. We have to take action, right? And so I would just say yes, because he did bring that up about he wants to be there for his kids.
Yeah.
And I know with Jack, like, he's not here anymore. He's gone. So you're living amends. And this is me getting into my coaching role here, is to not let the enemy creep in your head and give you those thoughts.
Exactly.
Because that is the enemy trying to pull you back.
Yeah.
Because the moment you make a decision for a new life, he's going to claw and scratch at you and try and bring you back down, because that's also been my experience.
And you're always trying to find the purpose of something. I mean, the tragedy of it all. But there's a purpose. There's a reason. That's why, what does God want me to do? And right now it's only been 3 months. So what a way to listen is to be sober, be spiritual, walk this new walk. And when I'm ready, I'm sure he'll let me know.
Because we want everything right now. We live in the microwave society.
Correct.
Right? We want answers now. And I had heard this recently because I've been praying a lot and asking God, why did this happen with my daughter? Why did I lose my rights to my daughter? And God didn't tell me why. He's probably never going to tell me why. But what he did tell me is I'm supposed to transmute the pain into love. And what he also told me was that what happened so that kind of love that you have for your daughter today. And I know I mentioned that to you before.
Yeah.
So there is a purpose behind everything. And,
sure.
And that separation was over 14 years ago. And now God's giving me these answers. And so, your son's tragedy, there may not be an answer for you within even the next 12 months.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be prepared for that, right? Like,
correct.
But if you're doing the right thing consistently day to day and you keep that faith,
keep the faith. And if you can change one person's life, if one person can learn from you, from your experience, it's working then. And that's all we can ask for, is just one person at a time.
And I'm so proud and I'll just reiterate this point, I'm so proud of you and of Sarah, of your ex-wife, and the whole family, really to say, no, we're going to step into this role of, we're mourning the loss of our son. We want to be transparent about what happened. Because like I said, I shared this with another family that I knew growing up. They wanted to hide everything. And I think you've shared similar experiences with other families.
Of course.
So there is going to be great things that come of this.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. And I'm so proud of you because you're putting in work. And I know the kind of guy you are. We're similar in a lot of ways, but you're doing what it takes. You're taking action. You're taking suggestions from me. And we're just walking this journey together. So it's incredible.
Life's short, man. And you gotta hit it.
Yeah.
You don't know when your time is up.
And again, I also want to just thank you for sponsoring the show.
Absolutely.
So
thank you
real quickly
for coaching.
Real quickly, if somebody has an interest in getting a quote for insurance, if somebody is just not sure if they're paying too much money or if they have the right coverage, where do they need to find you at?
They can call us at 520-878-0098. They can get online. They can email michael@baderagency.com.
Okay.
Or www.baderagency.com. And basically, it's the environment's, it's difficult right now. Everybody has experienced rate increases. And there's a lot of families that are on fixed incomes. So, I encourage anyone that's unhappy, just go out there and get a quote. Find out where you're at, where you stand. Worst case,
it's really no skin off the customer's back,
100%, right? It's not like high pressure sales here.
Yeah.
We'll just let you know, hey, this is what we can do.
Right.
And if they have a better rate, hey, stay where you're at.
Is there any new exciting products that State Farm has, or anything that you guys have exclusively that you'd want to let folks know about?
It's always changing. Different coverages on the house, different endorsements that we can put on. like service line coverage is a coverage that will cover the pipes,
Right.
Whether it's water, gas, sewer, $500 deductible, cover up to $10,000. A lot of people are paying for that coverage through the utility company.
Actually, I have Service Lines of America did it when I first moved into my house
Yeah.
on mine. It's funny you say that.
So if somebody is with State Farm, definitely talk to your agent at your next renewal, because that's when that's when they can add it, is when their policy renews. And I encourage everybody, at least once a year, talk with your agent. Go over your policy, because life changes. You can have a different job. You could be making a lot more money. Where you at with liability? Are you covered? Just have that conversation.
And do you guys offer life insurance too?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
So besides vehicle and
always
home
changing,
insurance, there's life insurance.
Life insurance.
Okay.
They have a bank.
Okay. Wow.
We're with the bank. We had our own bank, but now we have ties with U.S. Bank.
Okay.
So yeah, just talk to your agent. Sit down with them for a half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it takes.
Talk with Mike. Go
Give me
talk
a
with
call.
Mike.
Give me a
You know
call.
what? Mike's fantastic. I'm just going to plug him real quick here. The stories that he's told me about his interactions with his clients and his customers, and going basically above and beyond as far as helping people move stuff, getting just involved with people's families. I know one of our future guests is Poncho. He's a local celebrity here in Tucson. God is good.
Poncho.
I know you go over and have lunch with his mom.
Yeah.
And you entertain them.
Yeah.
And you talk about insurance, I'm sure.
She's
the whole
my
time you're
second
there.
mom.
Yeah.
She's always there for us. She's cooking for us, and she makes it's a great time hanging out with Poncho and his family. He's got a wonderful family.
100%.
The support system is amazing. It's just he's got a great son. His daughter's fantastic. He's got a granddaughter, excuse me, and then his mom and his extended family. Just a very welcoming family. You feel like you're one of them.
Yeah.
When they invite you to their house and you have dinner with them. It's just, it was
Showing
a
you
blessing to
some
have him in
Tucson,
my
Arizona
life.
love.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's what attracted me to Tucson, was just the culture that Tucson has. I went to Mexico, I think. I moved here in 2003. I went to Mexico in 2001. We went to Tulum, and I just saw myself living that life, like living close to Mexico. But I really, really admire the Hispanic culture, the tight-knit family. It's great to be part of it.
And he'll be on here, and I don't want to speak for him, but he's got a great recovery story, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with that tight-knit family.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
100%.
Like leaning into that,
Yep.
as well as his higher power.
Yep.
So. And then also, guys, if you want to go deeper on any of the topics that we covered today, or anything else that has to do with spirituality, sales, or sobriety, you can check out the website, MikeCurryCoaching.com. Tony, if you wouldn't mind flashing that at the bottom of the screen for us. And my phone number is the 520-809-3559. Feel free to shoot me a text.
Absolutely. Just give him a call. That's where I was at. I knew there was a different purpose. I needed a purpose. What was my calling? And, when I had lunch with you that one day at wherever we went.
We tried to go to Choice Greens.
We did. We went to
weren't
Zimberger.
open. Yeah.
I just was gravitated towards you.
I think the best compliment I've ever been given was given by you. You said, "I'm like a drug,"
You are.
which is so funny because we're not doing those anymore.
No.
Yeah.
But no, anybody out there that's struggling, if anybody just needs a helping hand, give Mike a call.
Yeah.
He's there. He's great. He's made a difference in my life, a spiritual difference, every bit of it.
What's the biggest thing you think you got out of our conversation with Kirk today?
His spirituality, man. If you open your heart to God,
Yeah.
You got it. Don't resist it. Open your heart. He'll be there for you, and just listen.
It kind of goes to show that no matter how much money you have or make, or what your position in society is, if you don't have that relationship, at some point you're searching outside of yourself for that.
Correct.
Right?
There's more to life than money. There's more to life than the materialistic things. Open yourself up.
Yeah.
So it's been great, man.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Look forward to next week.
You too.
Yeah. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.